أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيبنا وعزيزنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه من الأنصار والمهاجرين ومن تبعهم جميعا بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Dear brothers, dear sisters, Jumu'ah Mubarakah and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the previous talks that we had, I think it's been about 2 months now or so, we've been concentrating on our early Muhammadi Islamic history, meaning our Islamic history beginning with the final prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam, not our Islamic history preceding the final prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his. Because sometimes when someone says early Islamic history, the average person thinks that this has to do with about 1400 years ago. In a more broader sense of the word, early Islamic history has to do with the early prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those prophets date back to Adam and Idris and Nuh. That's early Islamic history. So just by understanding the words that we are using and comparing the usage of and comparing our current usage of this phrase to the more general understanding of the same phrase, we can evaluate how we've been conditioned to think. Just that word, early Islamic history. Something to think about between you and yourself. So in these past 2 months or so, we've been more or less trying to explain the dynamics that set in the deviation that occurred when the Khilafah was subverted and kings and dictators began to rule in stealing the title Khalifa and more or less getting away with it, still getting away with it in the traditional minds up until today. So we're going to right now shift. What I'm going to try to do, let me explain something. This has to be explained before I go on. There have been in the thousands of years that have passed in the struggle between al-haq, truth and justice, and al-batil, the opposites of truth and justice. In this long history, the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his prophets, this message before the final prophet was monopolized by, more or less, was monopolized by Bani Israel. They have a long history, they have a tortured history, they have a zigzagging history, and they have a failing history. they hijacked the message of Allah, His revelation, His scripture, and His prophets, and put them within a family and then an extended family, a blood lineage, an ethnicity, a race. This is what happened in the history of revelation before the final prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the prophet, in the years that followed Al-Imam Ali, and we're looking here at rulers. Please don't mix up the average Muslim with the decision maker. So when we're looking at these decision makers, they also have hijacked and monopolized the message of Allah and the revelation that was given to Allah's final prophet, alayhi wa alihi salatu wassalam. So we're looking at here two phenomena that are similar in the sense that the universal message of Allah and His prophets, Allah and His final prophet, the universal message there was taken over by people that claimed superiority to others. They either made this claim in a theological sense, which is peculiar to the history of Bani Israel, or they made this claim in a political sense, as is the history in Bani Umayyah. So there's a parallel that is running in history before Allah's prophet, final prophet, matched with a parallel that has been running after Allah's final prophet. Banu Israel before, Bani Umayyah after. We don't want to get into this. I'll try to expand some of these details. There's a lot of history involved here, and I'll try to help you and help ourselves break through the chains that have been inherited, however way we describe ourselves or however way we think of ourselves. So anyways, so here we are. I'm going to try to, that was a necessary explanation that I think would serve as a introduction to speaking about Bani Israel and speaking about Bani Umayyah or Bani al-Abbas or Bani whatever dictators there was in our history. So this Friday, today, I will be going back to Bani Israel and speaking about the Quranic information, expanding on the Quranic information that we have pertaining to that history, out of which, we're not here just speaking about history for the sake of speaking about history. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He provides us with these narratives or this important information, it is meant for us to learn. This is a learning experience. This is a learning curve. We have to learn from this so that we don't go into the vicious cycles of mistakes and deviations that were committed by those who preceded us. So this is not just some academic rehash of some historical issues. These are lessons that we have to learn from. Now, so let's begin here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ نَجَّيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يَسُومُونَكُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ نِسَاءَكُمْ وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَظِيمٌ. Take a moment with me and think about the wording that begins, that launches this ayah. وَإِذْ. When Allah Jalla Sha'nuhu says وَإِذْ, the intent here is for us to take our time and think about what is going to follow these opening two words. وَإِذْ. وَاذْكُرْ. Bear in mind. Always be vigilant of. وَإِذْ أَنْجَيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ. Allah is saying to Bani Israel and to everyone who is willing to learn from the lessons in the history of Bani Israel. وَإِذْ أَنْجَيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ. We have rescued you from the kindred spirits of Fir'aun, from the folks of Fir'aun, from the affiliates of Fir'aun. That's the word al. For some of us Muslims, I am cautious not to use the buzzwords that bring into the issue sectarian sensitivities. Some of us Muslims, when we use the word al, we almost automatically think that it means household or family. That is not the case. Please, for those of you who have been conditioned to think like that, review the word al in the Quran. That's the only reference you're going to have to give you an expansion of mental horizon to understand what the word al means. In this ayah, وَإِذْ أَنْجَيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ. Bear in mind, be aware of the fact that we rescued you from, it's not the family of Fir'aun. For those of you who have been taught traditionally that the word al means family, learn, this Quran is meant to teach you. This is the only thing we have that can teach us about the misconceptions that have been drilled into us throughout generations and centuries. وَإِذْ أَنْجَيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ. Banu Israel were rescued from the collaborators of Fir'aun, the kindred spirits of Fir'aun, the affiliates of Fir'aun. يَسُومُونَكُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ. Subjecting you to the worst, subjecting you meaning Bani Israel, to the worst type, to the most atrocious type of torment. يَسُومُونَكُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. I haven't done the qira'at. We have 7 legitimate readings of the words in the Quran that basically have to do most of the times with vowels. The letters don't change. The vowels may change, and the changing of the vowel, not in every word, in some words in the Quran, and the changing of those vowels or the doubling of one letter, the same letter, tashdid, the doubling of it, would fertilize the meaning of the word itself. I'm not an expert in other languages to tell you if such a thing happens in other languages. But in the Arabic language of the Quran, when that happens, it fertilizes the same meaning. So in here, in this ayah, يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ, there's a doubling of the T in the word يُقَتِّلُون. The tashdid, for those of you who know the Arabic language, there's a shadda on the ta, يُقَتِّلُون. There may be another qira'ah, as I said, I didn't review this particular area here. And if there is, the word would be يَقْتُلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. The difference between يَقْتُلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ and يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. The word يَقْتُلُون is simply they are killing your offspring. They are killing your sons. يَقْتُلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. Just like that, in the generic sense, in the general sense of the word. يَقْتُلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. The word يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ, the same word, يَقْتُلُون and يُقَتِّلُون. The only difference is the first one doesn't have a double T in it. The second one has a double T in it. So the one that has the double T in it is an emphasis on the quantity of children, of offspring, of sons of Bani Israel who are being killed by the pharaonic system. And it could also mean the differentiation of the methods of killing the offspring and the sons of Bani Israel. يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ نِسَاءَكُمْ. That pharaonic establishment, al-Fir'aun, would kill the youngborn of Bani Israel and would leave the women alive, the youngborn sons, but would keep the women folk of Bani Israel alive, whether they were newborn babies who are females or whether they are the older female women of Bani Israel, mothers, sisters, daughters. The law of the land, the law of the pharaonic land was to keep Bani Israel's women alive. وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَظِيمٌ. And in that there was a very substantial, a very important, a very tremendous test for you, meaning for Bani Israel. Now there's another ayah in the Quran, instead of saying يُقَتِّلُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ, another ayah in the Quran recounts the same trial and tribulation of Bani Israel, but it says يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. يسومونكم سوء العذاب يذبحون يسومونكم سوء العذاب يقتلون أبناءكم. That's in Surah Al-A'raf. And then in Surah Ibrahim it says يسومونكم سوء العذاب ويذبحون أبناءكم. Some of these Orientalist minds who are still handicapped and are not able to harmonize themselves with the ayat and the wording and the meanings of these ayat, they will come and say, well, why is it one time Allah is saying, or they, in their words, why is it sometimes God is saying that the Pharaoh is killing the children of Israel, and another time the ayah is saying that the Pharaoh and his types are slaughtering the children of Israel, the descendants of Israel, Bani Israel. So whenever if you read such trivial, non-thinking comment coming from Orientalists or even some Muslims who have come under the spell, the mental spell of Orientalists, who come and question why is it one time the Quran says yuqattilun in one ayah in Surah Al-A'raf, in another ayah in Surah Ibrahim it is saying yudabbihun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He relates this information to us, He is relating accurate information. Meaning, when Allah describes the atrocious policies of the Pharaoh against Bani Israel, He is describing exactly what took place. So at one time, the Pharaoh may have given orders, or whoever is in command under the Pharaoh, in whatever chain of command they had at the time, they may have decided at one time to execute the babies of Bani Israel by killing them with different methods, just like execution is done in our world today. There's the electric chair, there's by lethal injection, there's by firing squad, there's by hanging. There are different methods of terminating life. And so when Allah is using yuqattiluna abna'akum, that's the general. Allah is telling us that the execution method was one of killing, simply killing, whatever detail that may include. But when you're saying when the ayah says وَيُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ, Allah is referring to a specific method of butchering babies, slaughtering innocent infants with the knife. يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. And here, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us further information, the Orientalists and the feeble minds of the students of the Orientalists try to build an argument concerning a detail like that, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us more information. You can't win with these types, because in themselves there's a psychological grudge that takes grip of their mind, and they think that they found something here to make an argument about. And this is not the only time these types are at work. There are ayat in the Quran that speak about Allah creating the heavens and the earth. Now, we use the words the heavens and the earth in a simplistic manner. Now with that's been the case for, the past centuries. But now with the different types of discoveries and explorations and space travels and all of this, we have something of a better understanding of what is referred to as the heavens. Now, the heavens here, when we say the heavens and the earth, we are not speaking about the heavens of the hereafter. We are speaking about the celestial spheres as far as our mind can go. So there are ayat in the Quran. Take Surah Fussilat. I can read the ayat, but you may want to refer to them in the Ascendant Quran translation. The ayat begin with ayah number 9 and they end with ayah number 12. And in these ayat, Allah is speaking about the different stages. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent of time. So when He is speaking to us, we are not independent of time. So to relay to us some meanings, He subhanahu uses words to try to have us catch some of the meanings that go into His and only His act of creation. Because we don't know what creation is. We cannot create. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create. So when He is speaking about creation and He uses the word day, it is not our creation because we don't create, and it is not our day because we are not deities. So I will just quote the ayat, and as I said, you can refer to them, to the translations, because if I'm going to read the translation for you, it's going to take extra time. قُلْ أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَكْفُرُونَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَ الْأَرْضَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ. Say, O Muhammad, to them, to the people who are listening, are you in denial of and in objection to He who has created the earth in 2 days? وَتَجْعَلُونَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا, and you superimpose upon Him rivals. ذَلِكَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ مِنْ فَوْقِهَا وَقَدَّرَ فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا فِي 4 أَيَّامٍ. Then Allah speaks about the details of this creation, of the earth and the spheres, and the sustenance and the potentials therein in 4 days. سواء للسائلين. ثم استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان فقال لها وللأرض ائتيا طوعا أو كرها قالتا أتينا طائعين فقضاهن 7 سماوات. He finished them by having them 7 samawat, elevations, في يومين, in 2 days. وأوحى في كل سماء أمرها وزين السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وحفظا ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. See? 2 days, 4 days, 2 days, Allah is going into these details. The human mind begins to make errors when it infers, at least, that it knows what creation is. And then it wants to put a human time definition on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He is not constricted by time. وقال موسى, this is let me go to the beginning of Surah As-Saff. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لم تقولون ما لا تفعلون كبر مقتا عند الله أن تقولوا ما لا تفعلون. What I want to bring to your attention here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to committed Muslims, why do you say what you do not do? Remember, this Allah is speaking to committed Muslims, not speaking to people. It didn't say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, Ya ayyuhan nas, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. He is saying to committed Muslims, why do you say things that you do not do? So committed Muslims are subject to this type of behavior, to the extent that committed Muslims may also go to war against each other. In another surah, in Surah Al-Hujurat, when طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. So that not only do committed Muslims say what they don't do, but they may also gear themselves to go to war against each other, something that you have to think about and something that you will not be able to understand if you are absent from Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.